Russia became the first P5 country to be suspended from any UN body, and Libya was the only other country to have its Human Rights Council participation rights revoked in 2011, following evidence of mass human rights violations. The United Nations General Assembly voted Thursday to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council in response to reports that its soldiers killed civilians while fleeing from the territory surrounding Ukraine's capital. Germany's news media, Der Spiegel, has revealed that the BND, Germany's foreign intelligence service, intercepted Russian military radio transmission, in which the massacre of over 400 people in Bucha was discussed. In early April, dozens of corpses in civilian attire were discovered in Bucha, on the northern gates of the Ukrainian capital, on the streets, or in mass graves, following the Russian retreat. Images from the city shocked the world, prompting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to call the executions genocide. The Russians, on the other hand, have remained steadfast in their denial of the massacre, alleging that the photographs surfacing from Bucha and other villages are fakes created by Ukrainian forces, or that the killings occurred after Russian soldiers withdrew. Germany's spokesman, Stefan Hebestreit, told reporters that Russian soldiers took part in the interrogation of prisoners, who were later executed. "That is the information we have," Hebestreit said, and adding that targeted executions by Russian armed forces are evidence that the Russian president has at the very least tacitly approved of human rights breaches and war crimes. The UN General Assembly resolution expressed grave concern, particularly reports of violations and abuses of human rights, and violations of international humanitarian law, committed by the Russian Federation, including gross and systematic violations. Ukrainian Foreign Minister said, "War criminals have no place in UN bodies aimed at protecting human rights." The United States initiated resolution. At least 57 countries had signed on, as co-sponsors of the resolution, and achieved the two-thirds majority of UNGA voting members required to pass, with 93 votes cast in favor and 24 against, and 58 countries abstained. This time, voting favored the United States and other Western countries seeking to expel Russia for alleged violations in Ukraine. Russia also urged an undetermined number of countries to vote no, claiming that abstaining or failing to vote would be regarded as hostile move and would harm bilateral relations. The vote, which makes Moscow the first permanent member of the UN Security Council to have its membership revoked from any United Nations body, was quickly applauded by Kyiv, but criticized by Moscow. Russia has stated that the attempt to expel it from the Human Rights Council is a political act by countries seeking to maintain the dominant position and influence over the world, and Washington exploits the Ukrainian crisis for its own benefit. Some countries, however, had spoken out against it, on the basis that it singles out Russia prior to an investigation into charges of human rights violations in Ukraine. And meanwhile, China, Iran, and Syria were among the 24 countries who voted against the resolution. China's UN envoy, Zhang Jun, said, "Such a hasty step before the General Assembly, forcing countries to take sides, will deepen the rift among member states, intensify the confrontation between the parties involved. It is like adding fuel to the fire." Despite Moscow's push for a no vote, numerous African countries, including South Africa, Senegal, and Brazil, Mexico, and India, among others, also abstained. India abstains. India's explanation of vote came after the voting. T.S. Tirumurti, India's permanent representative to the United Nations, said,
"Recent reports of civilian killings in Bucha are deeply disturbing. We unequivocally condemn these killings and support the call for an independent investigation. We hope the international community will continue to respond positively to the humanitarian needs."
T.S. Tirumurti said, India decided to abstain for reasons of both substance and process. India stated, "We are adamant that all choices be made in accordance with due procedure, as our democratic politics and systems require." This also applies to international organizations, including the United Nations. Tirumurti said, recalling India's unambiguous condemnation of civilian fatalities in Bucha and backing for an independent investigation. The Indian ambassador reiterated India's position that it stands for peace, dialogue and diplomacy. In his explanation, the official stated that India is concerned about the deteriorating situation and has called for a cease to all hostilities. When innocent human lives are at stake, diplomacy is the only feasible alternative, he said. While the Council cannot make legally enforceable decisions, but its actions communicate strong political messages and can authorize investigations. Moscow has been one of its most vocal members, and its suspension prevents it from speaking or voting, though its diplomats can still attend debates.